As U.S. President Barack Obama's presidency draws to a close, repealing his signature health care legislation tops the Republicans' 2017 to-do list. Somalilanders risk their lives harvesting frankincense. And 30 years a star, a legendary singer-songwriter dies at 53. Africa 54 starts right now.
Good evening and welcome. I'm Vincent Makori. This is Africa 54. Violence erupted over the weekend in the Democratic Republic of Congo. Army officials and local activists say militias in eastern DRC killed at least 34 civilians. Attacks surged across the country last week alongside violent protests over President Joseph Kabila's failure to step down at the end of his constitutional mandate last Tuesday. It is not clear that all the violence is related, but analysts fear political instability over Kabila's tenure is stoking local conflict. An ethnic Nanda militia killed at least 13 Hutu civilians on Sunday in the eastern town of Nyansale in an apparent revenge attack for the death of 17 Nanda civilians last week. 21 civilians and 4 militiamen were killed Saturday in attacks near the city of Beni. In West Africa, a suicide bomber attacked a cattle market Monday morning in the northeastern Nigeria. Police say the female bomber struck Maiduguri's Kasawone Shanu market in the central district of Kasuwa at 8:40 a.m. local time. Authorities say the bomber was the only person killed in the blast. Police say a second woman who had a bomb was caught, alleged by an irate mob in the vicinity. Security forces later detonated a device. No one has claimed responsibility for the attack, but it bears the hallmarks of the Boko Haram terrorist group. The U.S. lawmakers are bracing for a burst of legislative activity at the start of 2017. VOA's Michael Bowman reports topping the agenda for majority Republicans is a full assault on President Barack Obama's health care law, a signature domestic achievement that has dramatically reduced the number of uninsured Americans, but failed to keep the cost of health care premiums in check.
We are done. Nearly 7 years after Obamacare became law, a record number of Americans have health insurance, but not everyone is happy.
Unfortunately, it's not affordable. Everybody's health insurance, their premiums keep going up, keep going up, keep going up.
Large premium increases were common before Obamacare, but the law's premise that younger, healthier Americans would buy health care plans and offset the cost of insuring the elderly has not panned out.
We will repeal the disaster known as Obamacare and create new health care, all sorts of reforms that work for you and your family.
Democrats insist Obamacare can be saved rather than scrapped.
We want to try to improve the bill. We know it could be improved.
Doing nothing is not an option.
For years, Republicans promised to end Obamacare. Once Trump is president, they believe they will have their chance.
We will move right after the first of the year on an Obamacare replacement resolution. And then we will work expeditiously to come up with a better proposal than current law.
Democrats note that so far, Republicans have not provided exact details of their replacement plan.
What do you want to replace it with? They can't come up with an answer. So we're certainly not going to be part of this idea of repeal and put nothing in its place.
Democrats are betting any Republican plan to replace Obamacare will anger just as many Americans as Obamacare itself.
To our Republican friends across the aisle, bring it on.
Healthcare spending accounts for more than 17% of U.S. gross domestic product, the most of any advanced industrialized nation. Michael Bowman, VOA News, Washington.
U.S. President Barack Obama is vacationing with his family in his home state of Hawaii, while President-elect Donald Trump is at his luxurious Mar-a-Lago estate in Palm Beach, Florida, where he is holding meetings with senior staff, advisors, and business executives. President Obama and his two daughters, Sasha and Malia, shared a meal with friends at the Side Street Inn, located in the shopping district of Honolulu. Afterwards, the Obamas, along with some friends, also went to Island Snow in Kailua for shaved ice, the popular Hawaiian dessert consisting of shaved ice and various syrups and toppings. Well, one of the hallmarks of American democracy is a peaceful transition of power from an outgoing president to his successor. Years of planning guide the massive task of transforming Washington, D.C. into a globally televised parade. Military leaders planned for the big day with a giant map of the D.C. Armory. VOA's Arash Arabasandi reports.
This big map is a tiny version of Washington, D.C. It's here that officials from all over the country plan the path of the parade for America's 58th presidential inauguration.
It's a lot of moving parts. You know, we've got a fairly condensed space where we're working on the Capitol grounds and a fairly short amount of time where we have to get all of these events done and completed in basically what's a no-fail mission that day.
To practice, the armed forces roll out a 12 by 18 meter map of Washington. The map highlights the parade route and the logistical quagmire that partners military, federal, and local officials.
We're actually thrilled to be, as a military, to have the cooperative partnerships of the other federal agencies that we get to work with in the city, because we're moving a lot of people through a lot of people.
We have almost up to 7,000 to 8,000 soldiers coming from 40 states, so we have to ensure that we get them here, move them forward to their mission site, perform their mission on Inauguration Day, and get them back home within that 72-hour window.
January in Washington is typically cold, with temperatures hanging just around freezing. Another incentive for a smooth transition.
So it's kind of, you don't want to keep the military members out there longer than they have to be.
Inauguration Day is January 20th, a Friday, and Fridays are relatively quiet in Washington. But with the election of a truly unique president, plans on paper may evolve in the nation's capital. Arasha Erbasadi, VOA News, the D.C. Armory.
Well, in many parts of the U.S., local groups are teaching undocumented immigrants their rights in the event they are detained by law enforcement, a mission that has become more urgent in the face of President-elect Donald Trump's promises to be tough on immigration. VOA's Aline Barros and Christina Smith visited a workshop in Hyattsville, Maryland, that teaches immigrants their rights.
The knocking is strong. It's strong enough to make the audience stop and listen, which is just what Casa de Maryland wants. This workshop commemorates International Migrant Day, but it has a bigger purpose. About 100 people attended the workshop in Hyattsville, Maryland, where a brief training showed how they can protect themselves and their family during immigration raids or arrests. CASA officials want undocumented immigrants to be well informed and know their constitutional rights are the same anywhere in the United States.
We all should know what those are rights and how to make them stand. The right to remaining silent, the right to an attorney in case that there is an arrest, and to only provide our name if you live in the state of Maryland as the only information that you need to provide.
President-elect Donald Trump has vowed to fight illegal immigration by promising to build a wall along the Mexico border and deporting millions of people living in the country illegally.
Trump has a lot of power, and I think that scares a lot of us.
Maria Herrera is a recipient of the Deferred Action for Childhood Arrivals program, or DACA, President Barack Obama's executive order that protected millions of undocumented immigrants, known as Dreamers. Herrera says Trump can destroy DACA with his signature.
But I do have a lot of anxiety of what he can do if if one day he just decides to just cancel all that, because a lot of people are going to get separated from families. I just had to come today to get more informed, because I probably don't have much information, but they do.
Dan Stein is the president of the Federation for American Immigration Reform. He says he understands that it's not a happy time for people who are giving these benefits. But Stein says immigration is a civil benefit, and these workshops tend to make it difficult for authorities to enforce the law.
What really these organizations are doing are trying to make it difficult for law enforcement to actually determine who has a right to be here and who doesn't, for the purposes of obstructing immigration law enforcement.
While some are expecting a Trump crackdown, others say it's better to use this time to become well informed.
This is my country. I was born here, but I was raised here. And every day I get up, this is familiar to me. I don't see any other place. So fear, not at all.
Trump has expressed sympathy for the 741,000 people in Dhaka, which started in 2012. But he hasn't dismissed the idea of getting rid of it. Alini Barrows, VOA News, Maryland.
We want to know what you think about Africa 54 and the stories we covered. Join the conversation on Facebook. The address is Africa 54, and check out our headlines 24/7 on voaafrica.com. Find me on Twitter at VOA Vince Makori. Coming up, the dangerous quest for an ancient Christmas gift. Stay with us.
This is BizBeat.
Thousands of used coats are collected, packed, labeled, and moved to charitable organizations around New York City. It's a festive time of year, but for thousands of people, many homeless, staying warm is hard, especially without a coat.
We have had an enormous amount of clients coming daily asking for coats.
Juan de la Cruz is the program director for the Coalition's Grand Central Food Program, one of the organizations giving winter coats out to anyone who needs one at a time when the number of homelessness is at a record high, he says. At New York Cares, another volunteer group, they've collected 20,000 coats, including one from New York resident Glenn Archer.
I know I see a lot of homeless people when I'm down in the city, and, I know what it's like to be down on your luck, so hopefully they'll go to a good cause,
New York shelters hold some 60,000 people at any one time. Still, there can be thousands of homeless people during the holidays out on the streets without a coat. For VOA's BizBeat, I'm Philip Alexio.
Well, for many years, Somalilanders have risked their lives to harvest sap of the frankincense tree for international export to be used in churches, French perfumes, and cosmetics. Frankincense grows wild in the Mado Mountains of Somaliland's Sanag region. But the old trade is under threat as trees die off from increased demand for their resin. Jason Pattinkin has more.
The ancient trade in frankincense thrives in the remote hills of Somaliland. Since biblical times, people in the Mado Mountains, part of what was once called the Land of Punt, have tapped frankincense trees for their resin. Egyptian pharaohs traded for the gum, and the three Magi brought frankincense with gold and myrrh to the baby Jesus, according to Christians. Today, frankincense remains a popular Christmas-time gift and is one of the largest sectors of the economy of Somaliland, a small breakaway republic in the Horn of Africa.
We have been dealing with this for over 100 years. My father inherited it from his father, and I inherited it from my father.
During tapping seasons, men live in caves in the mountains to be close to the forests. Tapping the trees can be dangerous because they often grow on cliffs. The men have no protective gear such as ropes or harnesses. They risk deadly falls if branches snap or trees break off the cliff face.
Yes, we are always afraid. Every year, when they are harvesting, either someone is seriously hurt or dies. We have no other option, so we have to do it.
Once collected, women prepare the gum for exports to the Middle East and beyond. Somaliland's Minister of Environment, Shukri Ismail, says people cut the trees too much and tap the trees all year round, causing them to die.
Tapping quite a lot will kill the tree. It will kill the trees. And that's what they are doing at the moment in order to earn. They used to tap it twice a year or once a year, but it became frequent now. Yes, and that kills the trees and kills the forests in general.
For the frankincense trade to continue for millennia to come, more will have to be done to preserve the trees. Jason Patinkin for VOA News in Ergavo, Somaliland.
Well, human-impacted climate change, habitat loss, and hunting have led to some pretty grim statistics when it comes to maintaining the planet's biodiversity. VOA's Kevin Enoch looks back at the year in wildlife conservation.
The parade of biodiversity on the planet is stunning. Unfortunately, it is increasingly at risk. According to the International Union for Conservation of Nature, 41% of all amphibians and 25% of mammals are under threat. One of the newest additions to the red list of vulnerable species is the giraffe. This long-necked beauty is finding less and less room to roam.
People started clearing down vegetation to create room for agriculture. So in the process, the giraffe started dying due to lack of food. And also human beings used to kill them in case they invaded in the crop field.
This is Sudan, the last male northern white rhino left alive on the planet, and the future of his species rests on his aging shoulders. Rhinos are being poached to extinction for their horns, prized as an aphrodisiac in some Asian cultures. To save the species, conservationists are dehorning rhinos to deter poachers. But even that drastic measure might not be enough.
The day might come when all the rhinos are dehorned, and it's still worth killing a rhino for just that 400 or 500 grams of horn, because the price of rhino horn is so huge that, you know, it's worth killing it for a small half a kg.
And a new survey showed the African savanna elephant population has dropped 30% from 2007 to 2014 and is declining at about 8% every year. But in other areas, there are too many elephants, and conservationists have begun relocation projects to help restore populations to their historical ranges. Other animals are getting harder to find, like Grevy's zebra. There are only about 2,500 left in the world. The orangutan and their great ape cousins, the gorillas, are both critically endangered, and conservationists believe South Africa's great white shark may also be facing possible extinction. But it is not all bad news. The elusive snow leopard has made a comeback, and trackers estimate there are as many as 140 in Afghanistan's Wakhan National Park. And scientists in Vietnam and Thailand have just added a number of species to the books during their explorations of the Mekong region. New discoveries include the rainbow-headed snake, this terrifying-looking gecko called a bunkowski, and these horned tree agamids, lizards found in Thailand.
So on the one hand, you know, this is incredibly exciting that we're finding these new species, but it also encourages us to work even harder to make sure that when we do find new species, that not only do we protect the habitat where they live, which has in turn benefits for us as people, but also really work hard to improve the enforcement to ensure that they're not lost to the trade, and to really work on changing people's attitudes to consuming wild animals in a way that is just not sustainable at all.
The future of many of these species rests on human shoulders. Doing the things necessary to ensure their existence into the future could in turn help ensure ours as well. Kevin Enochs, VOA News, Washington.
Well, from the wild to the city. Now, a street festival held recently in Kenya showcased Kenyan artists and musicians using their craft to push for positive social change. Lenny Ruvaga reports from Nairobi.
Boniface Mwangi signs his book Unbounded, which profiles his journey as a photographer and activist. He showcased his work at this month's Power Street Art Festival in Nairobi. He has photographed, among other things, a pivotal moment in Kenya's recent history, the 2007-2008 post-election violence.
If your art is not protesting, then you're not doing art. Because art speaks truth to power. It's actually the purest form of way of speaking truth to power. That's how we do art.
And that is the point of this festival, now in its second year. It brings together artists working for social change. Depicting the ills of government through caricature was a theme at the event. The work of Kenyan cartoonists was on display. Former constitutional law professor Yashpal Gai is a frequent columnist for Kenyan dailies on issues of governance.
They expose the brutalities of the government, of individual politicians. They expose a very, I don't know how to put it, very anti-political class. They have no commitment to democracy, to social justice.
During the past year, Kenya has seen several demonstrations on issues like electoral reform and corruption turn violent. But Kenyan painter and singer Michelle Wangui says there are other creative ways to make yourself heard.
I can protest in my song. I can protest in my art piece.
behind you, you'll see illustrations of, politicians and things that they've done expressed in such a, subliminal but funny and interactive way. So art gives you democracy in one way or another.
The festival is gaining a reputation as Nairobi's largest free art expo, where artists can display their work away from conventional galleries. Lenny Ruvaga for VOA News, Nairobi.
Well, it's time now for a short break. Still to come on Africa 54. One of the brightest stars from the world of music dies at 53. We'll be right back.
What he's supposed to do.
Welcome back to Africa 54. I'm Heidi Adams-Fitzpatrick, and here is what's trending. Fans around the world are remembering George Michael today. The British pop singer died on Christmas Day at his home in Oxfordshire, England. Michael's manager, Michael Lipman, says the cause of death was heart failure. Michael rose to fame in the 1980s with the band Wham and sold more than 100 million albums during his career. In recent years, he'd become a virtual recluse, making headlines only for a series of bizarre incidents linked to drugs. Michael was best known for his songs Wake Me Up Before You Go Go, Last Christmas, Careless Whisper, and of course my personal favorite, Faith. George Michael was 53. You know the saying, there's an app for that? Well, it could just as well have been the slogan for 2016. For those keeping their feet firmly on the ground, French company Digitsole designed this pair of smart sneakers which heat up, light up and tighten up at the touch of an app. In Japan, a tech company came up with a novel way to make ordering food a lot easier and quicker using the app on a smart device. It then allows you to place the device on a high-tech table mat that senses your location. In the UK, a tech company wants to be the Uber of private jets. StrataJet developed a high-tech price comparison website and app which gathers details and prices on private jets in seconds and connects customers with rides. That sounds nice and affordable. And finally, looking for a New Year's resolution? Well, here's an idea from Los Angeles, a California fitness trend that brings the beach to the gym. Fitness beach fans are heading to this gym in LA for a dose of beach-themed exercise. Sandbox Fitness is intended to be a fun way for people to lose weight, build muscle and strength. Classes include these special indoor surfboards designed to increase your strength. And you ask about the sand? Well, that's intentional to help take the pressure off the joints. My resolution, I won't be doing that. And that is what is trending today. Vincent, it's back to you.
It's every year's resolution, right? Well, Academy Award-winning actor Denzel Washington returns to the director's chair for the movie Fences. That's a character drama adapted from August Wilson's Pulitzer Prize theater play. Washington also takes on the main character of the story, Troy, an African-American blue-collar worker who struggles to survive in a 1950s racially segregated society. Here's VOA's Penelope Pulu.
When I first met this woman, I saw Rose and I latched on to her.
Charm oozes off Troy, a trash collector from Pittsburgh. He cajoles his wife and banters with his friend Bono in his backyard. He talks about life and lost chances because Troy knows what it is to lose. A promising baseball player, he never made the big leagues. Instead, he scrapes by. What he lacks in the world, he makes up at home where he rules as the lord of the manor, always reminding his family who's boss. His relationship with his youngest son, Corey, is contentious to say the least.
He got recruited by a college football team.
It ain't gonna get him nowhere.
If he be like you in the sports, he gonna be all right. Ain't but two men ever played baseball good as you.
And what did it ever get me?
Denzel Washington's fine performance has made him prime contender for an Oscar nomination. His portrayal of Troy reveals the racial divide of mid-century America.
Corey just trying to fill out your shoes.
Russell Hornsby, who plays Troy's older son, Lyons, a struggling musician vying for his father's respect, told VOA that, like the play, the film looks at the relationship between father and son within the African-American family.
He's looking for love, and he's looking for family. He's looking to be accepted, and he's looking to be embraced by his father. And so many men of color, black men historically, live life without. And so therefore they are fractured sometimes, therefore they are broken, and their backs are bent.
In an interview with The Voice of America, Denzel Washington said that the film and characters transcend race.
The themes of this film, of this play, are universal themes. They extend beyond black and white, and they reach to husband and wife, and father and son, and mother and son.
He says the same applies to Troy's inner character. It is not defined by his skin color, but goes right to the core of his psyche.
August Wilson has fashioned a masterpiece. It's one of the great plays, in American history. And it's an honor to be asked to act in it. It's an honor to be asked to produce it and direct it and to be a part of it.
Viola Davis delivers an Oscar-worthy performance as Rose, Troy's wife, and his rock of stability.
It's not easy for me to admit that I've been standing in the same place for 18 years. Well, I've been standing with you.
Fences has the potential for multiple Oscar awards, especially after years of criticism that the Academy has ignored people of color. But Hornsby says the awards are not on the actors' minds.
We've already won, quite honestly. We are victorious. Just by sitting before you and just by having this billboard up and just by having the film completed and in the can so that people can see and bear witness to the genius that is August Wilson.
I go out of here every morning, I bust my butt because I like you. You're about the biggest fool I ever saw. Now, don't you go through life worrying about whether somebody like you or not. You best be making sure that they're doing right by you. You understand what I'm saying?
Penelope Pulu, VOA News, Washington.
Well, that's one to watch. And that's our show for today. Now be sure to watch Africa 54 on our website at voaafrica.com. For more news, tune in to VOA's evening radio show, Africa News Tonight at 1800 UTC. And in the mornings today, Break Africa between 0300 and 0600 UTC, Monday through Friday. Thanks a lot for watching. From all of us here in Washington, have a good time. Have a good night.
Welcome to the Voice of America's News Words. This word is taken from a story about a recent climate deal reached between the U.S. and China.
Significant.
Chinese smokestacks put out more carbon dioxide than any other countries, more even than the world's largest economy, the United States. So Wednesday's announcement by U.S. President Barack Obama and Chinese President Xi Jinping was significant, says Duke University climate policy expert Tim Profeta.
When you say something is significant, you mean it is important. Something significant is special and worth noting.
Now, the next time you hear significant, you will know what this news word means.